Hello, everybody, and welcome to Episode 5 of the Two Generations, One Mic podcast, where we like to share stories, lessons, and life. My name is Ethan, and I'm here with my dad, Dwayne, of course. We really appreciate you all for tuning in for the 5th episode of our podcast. We've officially made it 1 month in, and we appreciate all of you guys for subscribing because we've officially hit 500 subscribers. Again, thank you all so much for being here for today's episode. We really hope you guys enjoyed today's topics, and enjoy the episode.
What's up? What are you doing?
Nothing much, just got home from work. Tired. It's been a busy couple of weeks, especially with trying to get these podcasts grinded out, recorded, edited. I've been, this is my 3rd week of work now, just, having a schedule with school and work, and it's been pretty tough, but, I'm finally getting into a little bit of a rhythm here, so I'm kind of leveling out on the tiredness.
It's good for you.
Yeah, and I just got paid today, my first check being back employed, so it feels pretty good to be working again, I'll tell you that.
Well, listen, can I hold $50?
Yeah, right. I need to hold $50 and I just got paid.
Hey, we're going to talk about family this time, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of different topics today.
And how about music? Touch on some music?
Yeah, we'd like to touch on some of our music tastes and its influences, on our lives and stuff like that. We also want to touch on last week's episode a little bit, just to give you guys a little update on that, as we do.
Well, hey, let's talk right off the bat about the plane crash in the Potomac in Washington.
Just last night.
Yeah, 67 people died, I think.
Yeah, the number's something like that. I'll flash it on the screen, the final count. But yeah, President Trump had a little conference today and said that there were officially no survivors.
Yeah, it's horrible because I saw some pictures. Just the young people that were on that flight and their trainers, the people that were figure skaters.
I saw that. It was wasn't it like the U.S. figure skating team or like a couple of them or something?
I don't know. It was a young team that were, the top of their field, and they were just a beautiful bunch of young faces. And, of course, their trainers were on there, and the people that were flying the plane, and, the whole staff. And it was just horrible. We haven't really had that kind of tragedy with that many people in years.
Yeah, right. And plane crashes hardly ever happen in the U.S. anymore.
Well, there've been more and more lately, but
that is actually true. I've seen I think more plane crash videos in the last month than I have in the past year. There's been two in Tokyo or around that area recently.
I don't know, but we just wanted to mention it off the bat. It's been a rough couple of weeks, man, into January of 2025 with the fires in L.A. We started out last year, ended last year with the drones, and that was on our first podcast. We talked about the drones, and it was weird.
Right. We had a really good conversation about that.
Well, Donald Trump came out this week through his press secretary and apparently said that they were all research and development drones, and they were all FAA approved. And even though there's some weird videos out there, man, of plasma balls,
some weird looking drones, quote unquote.
Physics being denied once again, but anyway, apparently we can put that to rest, the drone thing. And then, of course, the fires happened. We started out with the thing in New Orleans, and then in Las Vegas, and then the fires and the drones, and it's just been a weird month, man.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been a weird start to the year.
And this thing, it's just sickening. This thing this morning when we saw it, it's something, if you have any kind of heart, any kind of empathy, it's just when you see something like this, you go, man, it's just like a...
It really makes you appreciate life. You never know. That's why they always say you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, so you really got to appreciate every day.
I love to fly. I don't know if you've flown before.
Yeah, I have a couple of times, but I was actually just talking to one of my coworkers about that today. Is now it makes me a little more nervous to fly. And they say that flying in an airplane is one of the safest forms of travel, because it's safer than cars as well. But there's always just that risk whenever you go to an airport. Everybody gets that nervous feeling in their stomach. One of my roommates was telling me that it's just the feeling of not having control, if something was to happen in the middle of the air, you have no control over what happens to you, and, it's just a scary thing. And this whole plane crash thing is so sad. I saw a video that one of the girls that was on the plane, her boyfriend was standing at the edge of the river or whatever, talking to the news on the news last night, saying that his girlfriend texted him that they were going to land in 20 minutes, and that was the last message he ever got.
Listen, here's another story that I just heard, and I don't know if it's true or not. It was on one of the Main Street newscasts that there was a guy that was with them, with that group that was supposed to be on the plane, and his dog, I think, was too big to be, like, on the plane to be carried, so he had to make the drive out. Like, however long that is for
Wow.
And he got there, so he was, like, the only one out of them that survived. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's...
I'm sure it is. That's a crazy story. The survivor's skill.
Can you imagine? Just tragic, man.
Yeah.
Tragic. So anyway, those are some current events. We like to talk about things. You know what happened with TikTok this week too? Apparently, Microsoft is interested in TikTok.
That is the most recent word on TikTok is that Microsoft is interested in buying, which is kind of interesting.
One more thing that Bill Gates will own.
Right, yeah.
All right,
Something else for him to make money on. Well, that actually, real quick, I just wanted to mention right here while we're at the start of the episode still. I know we said this at the intro of the video, but I just want to, again, thank you guys all so much for the success on our podcast recently. This past week, since the last episode, we officially hit 500 subscribers, so we appreciate you guys all so much for doing that.
Yeah, we're like at 501 now.
Yeah, no, 502. I'm looking at it right now. It's pretty crazy. We just like to sit and watch it tick up. And as you guys have heard me saying, I think 3 out of the 5 episodes that we've made, we're not doing this for the likes or the subs, but we appreciate you guys all so much for clicking our links and checking us out and listening to the podcasts. We're up to like 520 views in just the last month and almost 30 hours of watch time. So, like I said, we just really appreciate you guys for all the attention that we're getting from you guys.
We have some good friends and family that, kind of just enjoyed, kind of the memories. I think that last week was really fun. The episode 4 was fun because, like, we talked about Bigfoot and ghosts.
Right. Yeah, my girlfriend Alyssa actually told me that I asked her if she had listened to the new episode yet, and she said that episode 4 was her favorite so far. So everybody listening right now, make sure to tell us down in the comments which one of the episodes so far has been your favorite and what's been your favorite thing to hear us talk about.
That was my favorite so far. I thought it was really fun. You know why? Because we were a little looser, and we were just talking.
Yeah, if you guys haven't listened to episode 4, make sure you guys go check it out. Because we said at the very beginning of the episode we were going to do it in a little bit different format than usual. But yeah, it was pretty fun. It was just a free little episode that we did.
All right, well let's talk about family. We wanted to talk about family, and I wanted to mention right off the bat my mom, who's always been my biggest fan. Can we talk about Granny Joe?
Yeah, and just to give everybody a little context, we really just want to do this just because, of course, there's a lot of people out there listening to this right now that already know our backstories or our families and stuff, but we really just want to give the people further out in our reach or people close to us that may not know that much about us just a little more information about our families and where we come from and how we were raised, stuff like that. So, yeah, Dad, go ahead and tell them about your mom, my Granny Joe.
Okay, well, she's my mom. She's your grandma. She's Granny Joe. But for us kids, you went to Dangerfield Junior High, as I did, and she was the lunch lady there when I was in 7th and 8th grade.
And when was that?
Huh?
When was that? Whenever you were in middle school and Granny Joe was the lunch lady.
We moved in 1980 from Fort Smith, Arkansas, down to Dangerfield, Texas. And so I think I came in the middle of my 7th grade year, and Mom got her a job there. She had already been like a nutritionist, and I call her lunch lady. That's what she was. But
right.
And she got a job there at the junior high, and then I saw her every day at lunch, with all of her friends, and I got to know them real well. So,
right.
It's so weird because now I also hang out in the kitchen with a lot of ladies. But, yeah, it's crazy. I'll tell you about that later.
Yeah.
But in junior high, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, all my friends would come through, and, of course, our house was the house to be at. We had band rehearsals over at Granny Joe's house.
Yeah, because you guys had 3 different bands running out of the garage.
Well, we drive Mom crazy, but Mom they called her Mama JoJo. Because she was my mom, so was that Mama JoJo? Every time, all my friends would come through the line and I'm sorry that you missed her doing that. She did that for like 20 or 25 years.
Wow.
And just about the time you guys went up through junior high, she was already gone from there. But
right.
We had a lot of good memories in the kitchen when I was going to, beg $1 or something like that from Mom.
For like little snack or something.
And my And my dad, my original dad, his name was Dennis. Mom and dad split up when I was 4 or 5 years old. And so I had a stepdad later named Johnny Floyd, and he was from Dangerfield. That's why we all moved down there.
Mm.
And so we moved down there. I was really young. We learned how to bale hay and run cows and, do general farming. And my dad was a real redneck, real leatherneck. I mean, and even though he wore a big brimmed hat, he wasn't stupid out in that Texas sun.
Uh-huh.
But he taught me work ethic. He was a real, true Renaissance man.
Man, right? Yeah.
He was a wonderful example of what a man should be, because he loved Mom, your Granny Joe,
uh-huh.
and they had a great, strong relationship for many, many years. And he taught me, how to run cows and ride horses and.
Yeah, and for anybody out there that doesn't know, I never got a chance to actually meet either one of my grandpas on my dad's side. They both had passed before I was born, but I always have wished that I got to meet Johnny. I've always wondered, what he was like and stuff like that.
You've seen pictures. That's because we revered him, still at my mom's house, Granny Joe's. And you grew up in Granny Joe's house. That's why,
right.
So what do you remember about Granny Joe?
Well, I can always remember coming over on the weekends and stuff, to Granny Joe's house, and she'd always have some chocolate oatmeal cookies ready or on the stove getting baked, ready for us to tear them up all in one weekend. No, I can remember. I have a lot of good memories with Granny Joe. There's so many memories at Granny Joe's house from back whenever we were little, just hanging out with you, doing random stuff, fighting pirates, fighting whatever we could make up in our imagination. Sleepovers in the backyard, all types of stuff. But one of the best things that I really remember about Granny Joe whenever I was little was she'd always sit at her, of course you know this, she'd always sit at her computer and play on Facebook all day and, watch her little show and sit in her chair as she does. And whenever I was little, I used to get the biggest kick ever out of going up in her room. And Granny Joe, her hearing isn't the greatest, so I could tiptoe up behind her back in the day, and I could get right up behind her and then go, ah! And I used to scare the bejeebus out of her. She used to get so, she'd jump out of her chair every single time I would do that. And I just remember, I don't know why, I just thought that was the funniest thing back then. But that's that's really one of my core memories with Granny Joe, is always, every time I'd come over there on the weekends, I'd go into the kitchen to get a drink. I'd catch a little peek out of the corner of my eye, Granny Joe sitting in her chair, and I'd be like, well, I mean, it's tradition. I have to. I gotta scare her.
Oh, she loved it. And she loved it. You're lucky you didn't give her a heart attack. But how about this? She would bring home chocolate milk from school that was about to expire.
Oh, Lord, I don't know if I want that.
half a pizza, when it was Pizza Friday or something like that. Listen, I got a story about Granny Joe that I haven't told many people, and I don't even know if I've ever told you, but before we moved down to Texas, when they split up, Dad lived out in California, my real dad, and I don't mean to, diminish Dad's role in my life. He had me all the way till I was 5 or whatever, and he raised me, and I went out there to, I don't know, it was 1975, and I went on my own. My mother let me go to visit my dad out in California, fly out of, I guess, Fort Smith, Arkansas or somewhere.
Wow, all the way to California.
And I was 7 years old.
Well, see, but back then, you guys didn't really have to worry about nothing.
Oh, yeah, I could smoke on the plane if I had a cigarette, probably. I mean, we had ashtrays in the seats and stuff back then. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I went to visit my dad out in California. Mom put me on the plane and said, okay, good luck. See you in a couple weeks or whatever. And it was probably TWA, which is now defunct. But the thing was, it went through Dallas. And I've never been to Texas or anything. When I was 7 years old, it flew to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport and then on to California. And I got lost at DFW. At 7 years old, I didn't know where to go, what
gate you were supposed to be at and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Was holding my hand. So I went to I meandered through the airport, and I finally found myself in the sales offices. They took pity on me. They're like, "Oh my God, where are you going?" So they got me.
Why, whose kid is this?
Yeah, I mean, even I didn't know what But you know what I remember about that trip is Mom gave me 30, 40, 50 bucks or something, cash, that I had in my pocket. I don't know, 20, 30, 40 bucks. back then it was a lot of money.
Right.
And I remember going to DFW, and I thought, well, I'm going to buy my dad something. And I bought him this little statue, and it was like a little horse Remington statue of a horse rider or a cowboy or something like that, because it was Texas. And I went to the gift shop, and it was like $20, $30, and I thought, man, that's a lot of money. And I spent it on it and took it to him, and he kept it on his, apparently, I heard later from my sisters and stuff, that he kept it on his desk, there on his bed, on his nightstand for years and years and years.
Wow.
Even though we were estranged, as they call it, we, like I said, my mom and dad split up when I was 5, and she eventually married my stepdad, Johnny. But we still had a relationship, at least as far as you could across America. Like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But anyway.
And you guys, it's just like me and you. Like, you live across the country now, and but you guys didn't have messenger and technology like we do now to keep in contact with each other.
That's true. We called each other. He called us a lot, and so we stayed in touch as far as when I was growing up in my teen years, whatever. And then we just we talked occasionally. And he died at 64 or something like that. I think he was not very old when he died, about 15, 20 years ago. I really wish that I'd known him better. I do know his daughters now. They are my sisters, and they live out there in California. So, our family expanded because of him, because he had got married and had kids out there,
Right.
And so now I have sisters. I've always had 2 brothers. Now I have sisters. And hey, by the way, talking about sisters, I talked to your sister last night.
Oh, really?
For a long time. And today.
She has some interesting stories to share. Gabby, my sister, she started her job at IHOP recently. She's been working at IHOP, staying on the grind. She's been working really hard. She's making money up there, making some tips. But yeah, she's going to school too. She's getting her cosmetology license and stuff right now, so she's staying busy as always. But yeah, for the future, you guys, we are planning on having my sister maybe on either the next episode or maybe 2 episodes from now. So make sure you guys turn on notifications so you guys can see whenever we make that episode. Well, Dad, since you just mentioned all your family and stuff, I guess this would be a good time for, I guess you really only mentioned your mom and dad, but I'll go ahead and mention you guys. Obviously, for everybody out there listening, all know my dad, of course, because we do this show together, but my mom is a school teacher right now, and she's raised me and my sister since, we've lived with my mom since we were 7 years old, so my mom's taken care of me and my sister for a pretty good long time now. She got us all the way through high school, middle school, is helping our way through college. My mom's always been a big support system for me and Gabby, and she's our number one supporter, and we love our mom so much for that, of course. She's actually in Wisconsin right now taking care of her mom. Just, she wanted to go up there and visit her and see her while she has a little break from work. But yeah, my mom's a warrior, a trooper. She's the best mom ever. She's taught me so many good lessons, as you have. You guys have both taught me and Gabby really good and set us up really well for the future, my adult life and work, and, just knowing what's right and what's wrong and how to be polite to people. You guys have really set me and Gabby up well, and I hope she realizes that too. And then Granny Joe, of course, too, and like I just said, Granny Joe, my grandma who lives in Wisconsin, who's with my mom right now, my grandpa Tony, they've all played big parts in making the person that I am today, My grandpa Tony, he actually listens to the podcast, so Grandpa, if you're out there listening, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, that's Grandpa Tony.
Yes, sir. I wouldn't necessarily say he didn't come into our lives, but we didn't really know our grandpa too well until we were about 7, 8 years old, because my grandpa lived in California for the beginning half of my life until he moved here to Texas, about 30 minutes down the road from where we live. And my grandpa served in the police force in California. He was a police chief for a long time, or a sheriff, one of the two, I think. He served on the police force for a long time out there in California, and he really inspires me too when it comes to work ethic and career goals in life. And I love sitting and listening to some of his stories about stuff he's done in his life and cop stories and stuff like that. We have a really, really long, extensive family. We could really go on and on for hours about our whole family.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch, on the importance of your moms.
Yeah.
Your mom loves you. She kept me in the loop. We separated when you were 6 or 7 years old, and we were still very, very close because of your mom. And she was a school teacher, especially with kids with special needs, a long time, and
yeah,
she's still teaching. I think she stopped for a while because she thought she might need to change it. She's like, I miss it. And
yeah,
so
right.
she went back. But it was fun because she was teaching in the school that you guys went through in elementary school in that small town where we grew up.
She used to teach in Dangerfield where we grew up at.
She's just always been the best mom.
Yeah, she's always, just as any parent would, she's always just made sure that we had what we needed and made sure that we were, set first before she did anything for herself, and I'll always love her for that.
And she's still doing that.
Yeah.
But, so let's move on. We were talking about flying, and I was talking about how I really loved flying. Do you remember your first airplane ride?
I wouldn't say my first one, really, because I remember didn't we fly to Wisconsin whenever I was like 3?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, the first one you can remember.
The first one that I could remember would probably be me and Mom going to Miami, Orlando a couple years ago. That's really the first flight I can remember. That
you got Universal.
Yeah, right? whenever me and Mom went to Universal, I'd say it was like maybe 4 years ago now. It's probably my freshman year of high school or something like that. Yeah, that was a really fun trip. But I was a little nervous about getting on the plane, but I knew we were going to be fine. I've never been too nervous of a flyer, but I'll tell you what, Alyssa is deadly against it. Like, I was going to say deadly afraid, but it's not like she's really necessarily afraid of it. She just won't do it. Like, she's not for flying. I don't know what we're going to do when we want to go to Cuba one day.
Yeah. No, it was fun for me for a while. It's fun when you kind of go on your own and you're there and you've got your bags and, you got to make your flights and and then you fly out to, for instance, flying out to California or whatever and flying into San Francisco or whatever, or even like Las Vegas.
Plane tickets aren't fun though.
Yeah, so it was fun for me. I don't know how fun it would be now. Let me tell you what is fun. Is Amtrak.
What's that? What even is that?
It's the trains that run.
Oh yeah. You told me about that. Me and Alyssa should take a train ride or something one day.
It is so much fun, man. You get to see all the different angles of cities that you don't see on the highway from the highway.
Right.
And it's just it's a lot of fun. It's pretty expensive, but it's worth it. Anyway.
It's worth the experience. I was going to say, speaking of experience, we love doing that, don't we? We just love talking about something and being like, speaking of, and then use the last word we said. No, but I was just going to ask you, Dad, about maybe some weekly dad advice you got for us.
Oh, my gosh.
Come on, man. We talk about these episodes in advance. You got to have something planned for me.
I got some dad advice for you.
Okay, fire away.
Hug the people that you love.
Yeah.
And keep them close and tell them you love them.
That's especially important today after the plane crash and all the fire, everything that's been going on in the past month, 2 months. That's really important. So that's your dad advice of the day. Just hug your loved ones and tell them you love them.
That's right.
Well, anybody that just heard us say that, you better actually go do it. You better go text your mom, text your grandma, text your wife, text your boyfriend, tell them you love them, because man, you never know what somebody else is going through.
And if you're like me, I'll be sitting right next to Dorinda, on the couch, and I'll still text her.
Yeah, I think I've done that to Alyssa before. We can go ahead and talk about our music tastes and stuff like that.
All right, so let's talk music. Do you want to start?
Well, I really just wanted to start by asking you, what kind of music do you listen to now, but what did you used to listen to, and how did what you used to listen to influence, your growing up? Like, how did that change, the way you acted as a kid or the things you did, and what was that experience like,
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, son. Do you want to talk about Rush or AC/DC? Or wait, how about Judas Priest?
This is your story, man. You start where you want to start.
Well, okay, you want to talk about Phil Collins?
Going all the way back.
Oh, wait, no, how about Steely Dan?
Good Lord, how many names are you going to name?
How about Nazareth? No, Nugent. I could do an hour on Ted Nugent. But wait, there's always Meatloaf or Alice Cooper. I've seen him 3 times. You'll never see a better show in your life. I haven't even mentioned Black Sabbath or Journey.
I think you've mentioned enough. Of them.
I digress. Let me mention Uncle Darren. Shout out to my older brother, Uncle Darren. He had Rush 2112 album. I think it was 1977. And we played Rush 2112. If you've never heard of it, I was crazy. When you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you're just starting to see the world around you and question things. And there were lyrics inside. The whole album was an interpretation of an Ayn Rand novel, a writer, and it had a red star on it, which was kind of devilish, but it was not the upside down star,
right?
But a right side up star. But anyway, you'll have to, Ethan, if I pass one thing along to you, It's Take Care of Your Teeth and listen to Rush 2112 over and over.
Listen to Rush 2112 like there's no tomorrow.
Well, anybody who was alive back then and it was a big influence on them, it made you think. They'll know what I'm talking about. The lyrics were like insightful and they were deep and they were there and you kind of interpreted them. The whole side of the album was one song.
Wow.
It was 21. Yeah, the whole side, like 20 minutes worth of music, and they had different, vignettes. Anyway, so Rush 2112 was such a big influence on me. Darren would put it on, and we would, like when Mom was at work or whatever, we turned the lights out, and he had the lamp and was shining on me, and I was jumping on the couch, and then I'd trade off, and he'd jump on the couch, and then we played it all the way through, and then we started it over again.
Did it all again.
It's just a great album, and that was a great time to be alive, because in the late 70s, early 80s, there were so many great rock groups,
Oh yeah, that was the thing. That was the thing back then, was rock and roll.
Oh, heavy rock,
Right.
Led Zeppelin and The Who, Pat Travers and Pat Benatar and Billy Squire. There's just so many that came out, and I was such a big fan. There was a show called Burt Sugarman's The Midnight Special, and it was like every Saturday night at like midnight or 12:30. So it was like after Saturday Night Live. That's how late you had to stay up, Which on Saturday night we had nothing else to do. When I was a kid, 7 years old, that's where it really got me. I mean, I was really influenced by that music
and it just hooked you on rock music from that point.
Well, but not just that, but they also had comedians on there like Steve Martin, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Robin Williams, and so I got a taste of counterculture, and it was, during the time of the hippies and the disco era, and so I got a taste of counterculture from these comedians that later really influenced me growing up, Cheech and Chong, and,
right.
So anyway, that was I started really young listening to music, and later when I got to be 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, I really expanded out. I just really enjoyed listening to all different kinds of music. I grew up on AM radio, a little AM transistor radio you'd listen to, and you listen to things that were popular at the time, which were not necessarily heavy metal rock and roll, that was later.
Right, like maybe like some Beatles songs or something like that.
Well, yeah, they would have like 60s songs like, Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. And just like, later in life, I was a DJ. People know my story. Like by the time I was 14, and I got into country music, and
right.
I started appreciating all these different styles of music, not just, heavy metal rock and roll, although that was what I listened to.
Once you became a DJ and stuff, you kind of started to understand that, hey, there's a lot of variety to this music stuff. I kind of like it.
Yeah. Well, I hated country music growing up because it was all, when I was, young, it was all real twangy and...
Right, yeah. Banjo music.
Hey, good looking, what you got, and I didn't understand it at the time, and I was like, I was listening to Cashmere by Led Zeppelin or whatever.
I've never liked country music either. I'm still not a big fan today. There's some country songs that I like, like the Tennessee Whiskey and, stuff like that. I like, the original songs, like the good ones and stuff, but yeah, I don't just turn on country music whenever I'm trying to listen to music.
Well, there's some good ones out there, but the new country music, I was there in what they call the second golden age of country, which is the 80s and early 90s, where you had Travis Tritt and Reba McEntire and Garth Brooks, all these great artists that came out. That was called the second golden age of country. And then now, to me, I love the country that's out now. I'll listen to it and go, wow, that's really good, but it all kind of sounds like it's made up in a boardroom.
Right, yeah. But they have to get pretty innovative with country nowadays just to, keep it fresh.
It sounds like pop music most of the time to me, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. There's a couple songs that are out now, but that's what I was going to ask you is, what do you listen to now? What's your current...
It really just depends on the person. It really depends on the person you ask. Kids, I would say for my generation... more specifically, it would be R&B music, rap music, pop music, stuff like that. I tend to stray away from the pop music, like Taylor Swift, Shawn Mendes, the big mainstream pop singers. They just like to sing the songs with a melody. But I really tend to grab a hold of rap music just because it's just so creative to me. And like, the way that music really speaks to me is like through the beat. Like if a song, I can't remember the words to a song to save my life. If Alyssa listens to it once, she'll have the words in the back of her brain till the day she dies. I cannot remember the words of the song to save my life. So I really grab a hold of a song by the beat. And like, if a song has a really good like rhythmic beat, or like something that really just like sends the goosebumps down my arms, like I have a deep appreciation for music. And
like dance music, like rave or techno,
I just mean like a rap song, and like it just has a really good beat going on in the background over somebody rapping or telling a story, or doing something creative with their lyrics that nobody else has ever done, like Eminem, for example. Or there's this guy coming up out of Dallas named Big X the Plug that I really like to listen to, and he's just so creative and different from all the other rappers I've seen in the past 5 years. And that's really what I like, is just something different. And of course, whenever I was a kid, you influenced me into liking music, and that's why I have such a deep appreciation now, is because, like you said, you started listening to music young, so of course, not forced it, but you put that onto me as a child too, showing me all the stuff you were interested in, and I really grabbed a hold of that really hard. And I'll go ahead and flash you guys a picture up right now of my dorm room that I'm sitting in right now. It's literally, my entire left wall is themed around Michael Jackson and Kiss and ZZ Top and all types of different musical groups from back in the 70s and 80s that my dad really pushed onto me as a kid. Because, man, me and my dad, every weekend, the second I'd get home, we'd go sit in the den and bump some Kiss music, man. I used to love listening to Kiss back in the day.
You remember I gave you a Kiss greatest hits when you were like 7?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I still have I've got a bunch of posters of Kiss hanging up on my wall that you gave to me, a whole book of posters, and I've got Kiss albums. I've got all types of rock albums only because you introduced me to that stuff. And also shout out to Uncle Doug. My Uncle Doug gave me a giant, like I'd say about a 2-foot wide box full of records of old music, and I sat down one day and put them all in and listened to all of them. And there's just so much history in music too. Like my past semester in college, I took a history of rock class actually, and like I got to learn a lot about from the very beginning of hard rock and roll to today, and what it's like now, and how back in the day influenced rock and roll today. And it's just like I said a minute ago, I have such a deep appreciation of music thanks to you. And music is just such a big part of, I think, everybody's lives. And whenever you're cleaning the house, you want to listen to music. Whenever there's not enough talking in the car, you turn on music. And there's just a big lesson to be learned from a lot of music too, and that's why I really tend to gravitate towards music instead of any other form of entertainment.
It did influence my life. It made me want to be in a rock and roll band when I was in junior high.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it just shows, you guys literally made a band.
Oh yeah, and we did. I wanted to be, my idols. Like I wanted to be Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin,
right?
Or Brad Delp from.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm a huge NFL fan, for anybody that doesn't know, and I mean I can relate to wanting to be the best wide receiver in the league. Like I wish I could have. Wish something would have went different in my life. I would be there now, but
We were talking about Kiss, man. I didn't even mention, and I could do a whole episode on just Kiss.
Man,
when they came out, and I was 7 or 8 years old. I mean, 6 or 7 or 8 years old. And it was like the best thing ever. And they show up on like Saturday morning shows, like, out of the blue, like on Captain Kangaroo or some weird,
Yeah, right. They you just be like, Gene Simmons, what the heck are you doing on Scooby Doo?
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's true. And I was so into them. I bought all their records. Me and my friends.
Oh yeah.
We'd go to Kiss parties, and we would trade records. Whoever had, and we would. We paint our faces up like this, and I joined the Kiss Army in like 1976.
That's awesome.
And I've been
Dang, didn't their first album come out in like 73?
Something like that. I don't know.
You hopped on the train pretty quick then.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It was a big influence on me. And then of course we hated country and we hated disco back then. But now I love to listen to disco because it takes me back to that time when I was, early teenager. And not just then when we moved to Texas and all my friends were, that's what we listened to on the radio. Aerosmith. You hadn't even mentioned Aerosmith. They were so big. And
there's so many different bands you could name. I mean, I know Nirvana wasn't really like during your childhood or anything whenever you started, but that's a group I like to listen to whenever I started to grow up a little more.
Oh, when they came out, man, in 1992 or 3 or whenever it was, and the whole grunge movement, that was another like era.
Just like how I mentioned that college class, I learned about, you know, all the different eras of rock and roll and how it started, how each of them ended, who was a part of each of them. You know, the Beatles are actually a really big part of history of the rock and roll. You know, you wouldn't think the Beatles are rock and roll, but that's what they classified themselves as.
Sure, I love the Beatles, you know. And here's the thing. The Beatles are, you know, different from Rush. And Rush is different from Pink Floyd. And you know what I mean? And Pink Floyd's different from Billy Idol.
And see, that is something that I miss about back then's music or back then's movies or clothes or their styles is everybody was trying to be original back then. Everybody wanted to be their own person. And now everybody just wants to copy everybody so they can get the same thing they have.
Right. It's been a long, hard road for rock and roll. I never was into like the heavy, you know, like really heavy.
You liked like the, you know, the Elvis, the stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like heavy rock and roll, but I just wasn't into like the death metal.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, like the nobody likes that.
I can't do it, man. I mean, I could listen to maybe one song like that, you know.
Maybe one before I get a migraine. That would blow my brain up.
I know, right? You know, I like and same way with rap. I like something with a melody, like, you know, something that comes in with a bridge, you know, like California.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that. I'll hear that one time and it'll be stuck in my head for a year.
Anyway,
I was just gonna say we can just go ahead and wrap this episode up here. I mean, we've talked about a lot of good topics today. We really hope you guys all enjoyed episode 5. We appreciate everybody so much for sending us all of the pet pictures that we've gotten so far. I'd say we've gotten at least 15 submissions from people of pets. So, yeah, at the end of the episode, we're going to start putting them at the end of every single episode. So if you guys don't see your pet on screen at the end of this episode, it'll probably be in the next episode because I got so many. But for the future, anybody that hasn't sent it yet, I'll go ahead and pop the email on the screen right now. Just go ahead and email us a picture of your dog and or dogs, cats, any animal you got. Send us a picture of it and let us know its name and some fun facts about your little pet, and we'd love to throw some pictures in at the end of the episode just so you guys can be a little more involved in the episodes. And again, I appreciate everybody for sending them in already.
Hey, and listen, like we said, listen to episode 4 because we've talked about some fun stuff that we don't normally talk about, like, you know, some supernatural and Bigfoot and ghosts and stuff. And we want you in your comments, if you get a chance to comment, we'd love to hear, you know, your stories or anything like that, or any pictures you want to send along.
Yeah, even on this video right here, make sure you guys comment and let us know what you guys thought of today's episode. And don't forget to let us know which of the episodes so far has been your favorite. And yeah, again, we just appreciate you guys all so much for all the love and attention that we're getting from the show. Like I said, this is the 5th episode. We're officially 1 month in, and we just hit 500 subscribers. So, I mean, we can only go up from here. Our goal, obviously, next is 600 subscribers. We're planning on having my sister on the show soon, and we're also planning on having my girlfriend and my dad's wife on the same episode, so we can get, like, you know, some kind of fun little viewpoints on relationships and, you know, stuff from not only from a married couple, but from a boyfriend and girlfriend, and also from 2 different generations. So I think that'd be a really fun episode. So make sure you guys subscribe and turn on the notifications so you guys can see that.
Yeah, that will be fun. Maybe we can get your mom on too if you'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you guys.
Hey, I love you so much, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you for being here, Dad. We'll be back next Friday for episode 6 of the podcast. Enjoy all the pictures of the pets. Thank you, guys.
See you next time.